We in the Orthodox Bible, the books of the prophets, this is the first book of Ezra. A little background, this is about the time of the captivity of the Jewish people when Babylon came and conquered them out, and the exile. So there's a lot going on here, but stay with me. A little quick insight on the Passover. It's a Jewish celebration, represent when Moses got the people out of Egypt, the Passover of the angel of death who killed all the firstborn Egyptian babies. They celebrate this. Josiah keeps the Passover. 1:1. Josiah kept the Passover to his Lord in Jerusalem. He sacrificed a partial lamb on the 14th day of the first month. He then placed the priests in the Lord's temple according to their division, clothed in their garments. And he told the Levites, Israel's servants in the temple, to sanctify themselves to the Lord and to the place of the holy ark of the Lord in the house of King Solomon, the son of David, had built. For he said, no longer will you carry the ark upon your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and heal his people Israel. Prepare yourself according to your families and tribes, and according to the writings of King David of Israel and the magnificence of Solomon his son. Stand in the temple of your proper order before your brothers, the children of Israel, and according to the office of your paternal families. And the Levites sacrifice the partial lamb and prepare the sacrifice for your brothers, and keep the Passover according to the Lord's commandments given to Moses. Josiah gave 30,000 lambs and kids to people who were present, and these were given from the king's possessions to the people and to the Levites. Promised. And Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Jael, the overseers of the temple, gave the priests 2,600 sheep and 300 calves for Passover. Jeconiah, Shemaiah, Nathaniel, his brother, and Hashabiah, and Achel, and Jerome, high-ranking officers, gave the Levites 5,000 sheep and 700 calves for Passover. And this is what happened. The priests and the Levites stood at their proper order before the people, holding the unleavened bread according to the tribes and the governors of their paternal families, to present the offering to the Lord, as was written in the book of Moses. This was done in the morning, and they roasted the partial lamb with the fire, and as was fitting, in the sacrifice were boiled in copper pots, and pans provided a fragrant aroma, and they were then carried out to all the people. After this was done, they prepared the partial lamb for themselves, and for the priests and their brothers and the sons of Aaron. And for the priest offered the fat until late, and the Levites prepared it for themselves, and the priests and their brothers and the sons of Aaron's, the temple singers, the sons of Asaph, and were also in their proper place according to their appointed order made by David, along with Asaph, Zechariah, and Edenos, and who belonged to the king entourage. Moreover, the gatekeepers from each gate, and were not to leave their posts for their brothers, the Levites prepared partial lambs for them. So the things concerning the sacrifices were completed on that day, and they kept the Passovers and offered sacrifices on the altar of the Lord according to the command of King Josiah. And thus the children of Israel who were present at that time kept Passover as well as the feast of the unleavened bread. For 7 days from the time of Samuel the prophet, there was no Passover kept in Israel such as this. No king in Israel ever kept such a Passover as Josiah did, along with the Levites, the Jews, and all of Israel who were present and living in Jerusalem. This Passover was kept in the 18th year of Josiah's reign. And these works of Josiah were upright before the Lord, for his heart was full of godliness. And this event that took place on the day of Josiah were recorded long ago, and they concerned those who sinned and acted against the Lord, and even more so than any nation and kingdom, for they grieved him extremely. And so the word of the Lord came against Israel. And then after these acts of Josiah took place, Pharaoh of the king of Egypt went to make war against Carchemish of the river of Euphrates. And so Josiah went out to encounter him. And then the king of Egypt sent word to him, saying, what do we have to do to each other, O king of Judea? Oh, what not sent against you by the Lord God? For my war is against the Euphrates. The Lord is now with me, and the Lord has hastened me onward. So therefore withdraw from me, and do not be opposition to the Lord. Josiah's reign ended. 126. Josiah, however, did not turn back his chariot, but he tried to fight against him, and thus he did not heed the words of Jeremiah the prophet from the mouth of the Lord. Rather, he engaged the Pharaoh in battle on the plain of Megiddo, and his commanders came down against King Josiah. And then the king told his servants, "Remove me from the fight, for I am badly wounded." And thus his servants immediately withdrew from him in the line of battle, and they mounted him on the second chariot and brought him back to Jerusalem, where he died. And so they buried him in the tomb of his forefathers, and they mourned over Josiah throughout all of Judea. Jeremiah the prophet also sang a lamentation on Josiah's behalf. Even to this day, the chief men and the women make lamentations for him, for it came to pass that this was to be done properly throughout all the entire nation of Israel. And these things are recorded in the book of the historians of Judea kings. And now everything Josiah did, his glory, his understanding, and the law of the Lord, and both his prior accomplishments and things now related are recorded in the book of the king of Israel and Judea. Quick study. So apparently Josiah was a great man of God. He kept the laws of the Lord, and he had the greatest Passover of all time. And even Jeremiah loved him. He sang lamentations to him, but apparently he couldn't mind his own business. He went out there and interfered in 2 other armies, and he ended up getting killed. So what's going to happen next? Babylon's going to... Jerusalem falls to Babylon. 132. The men of the nation took Jeconiah the son of Josiah to succeed Josiah as king. He was 23 years old, and he reigned for 3 months both Judah and Jerusalem. Then the king of Egypt dethroned him in Jerusalem, and made the people pay a fine, 100 talents of silver, 1 talent of gold. The king of Egypt then appointed Jehoiakim and his brother as king of Judah and Jerusalem. Jehoiakim put the people on high status in prison, then arrested his brother Ezra and brought him up from Egypt. Now Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king of Judah and Jerusalem, but he did evil before the Lord. So Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon came up against him, bound him with a copper chain, and led him away by force to Babylon. Now Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the Lord's holy vessels and carried them away and placed them in his temple in Babylon. And now the thing written about Jehoiakim and his uncleanness and ungodliness are described in the Chronicle of the Kings. Then his son Jehoiakim reigned in his place, for he was appointed king when he was 18 years old. And he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and did evil before the Lord. After a year, Nebuchadnezzar sent and departed him to Babylon, and together with the holy vessels of the Lord. And then he appointed Zedekiah king of Judah in Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old, and he reigned for 11 years, and he also did evil before the Lord, and did not respect the words from the mouth of the Lord spoken to him by Jeremiah the prophet. Although King Nebuchadnezzar made him swear in the Lord's name, and he swore falsely and revolted, and he became stiff-necked, hardened in his heart, and transgressed the law of the Lord God of Israel. Even the chief leaders of the people and the priests acted in many ungodliness and lawlessness ways, in suppressing all the uncleanness of all the nations. They even defiled the Lord's temple, which he had sanctified in Jerusalem. Now the God their father sent to call them back through his angels, and asked to spare them in his dwelling place. But they ridiculed his messengers, and whenever the Lord spoke, they mocked his prophets, until he became furious with his people. And because of their impious acts, so gave the commands to bring the king of the Chaldeans against them. They killed their young men by the swords, and round about their holy temple. They spared neither young men nor virgin, neither old men nor child, for he handed over all the nations in their hands. And they took all the large and small holy vessels of the Lord of the ark of the Lord, and the king's possessions, and carried them off to Babylon. They burned the Lord's house, broke down the walls of Jerusalem, and set the towers on fire. They made all the glorious things be worthless, and led away the survivors to Babylon with the sword. And they became servants to the king and his heirs, until the Persians began to reign, in the fulfillments of the Lord's and the words of the mouth of Jeremiah, which said unto the land, and he enjoyed the Sabbath, and I shall keep the Sabbath the entire time of desolation, until the fulfillment of 70 years. Wow. I can't believe I got all that in. So, it's going down right now. Jeremiah is always right. God bless you. God bless the whole universe.